The crowd cheered loudly, shaking the whole arena. Bright lights flashed everywhere. Everyone was excited watching the big fight. But behind the stage, something bad was happening. No one noticed until it got really serious. Behind the curtains, a young fighter stood still, his eyes wide with fear. A mean man, the fight promoter, grabbed him and pushed him against the wall. His voice was cold and sharp. "You have to lose this fight," he said. "If you don't, your family will be in danger." The fighter's face turned pale. The promoter showed him a video on his phone. The fighter's wife and little child were tied up, with scary men standing near them holding big guns. The fighter's hands shook. His heart was beating fast. He understood clearly, this man controlled everything. The promoter smiled in a cruel way. "I own you," he said. "Fall down in the fight, make it look real or else." He turned to walk away, sure that the fighter would do as he was told. Outside, the crowd was wild with excitement. Fans stood up, shouting, waving banners. Cameras flashed everywhere. Everyone was ready to watch an amazing fight, but they had no idea what was happening behind the stage. But one man did notice: Jason Statham. He leaned against the wall nearby, watching everything. His face was calm, but his sharp eyes saw it all. He saw the fighter's fear, the promoter's evil smile. He saw the terrible choice the fighter had to make. Jason knew this was not just a fight. This was something much bigger. The promoter smirked, thinking he had won. He was about to leave when Jason stepped forward. His voice was quiet but strong. "I will fight instead," he said. The whole room went silent. The promoter froze, shocked. He had no idea that he had just made the biggest mistake of his life. The arena was full of people, thousands of fans cheering. The music was loud, making the ground shake. Bright lights flashed all over the stage. Cameras filmed everything, showing the excitement to people all over the world. It was a night of entertainment, fun, and big fights. But behind the scenes, things were not as they seemed. Jason Statham sat in the VIP section, dressed simply in a black jacket. He didn't have a big group with him. While others laughed, drank, and took pictures, Jason stayed quiet, watching. His eyes moved around, noticing every little thing. He saw the fighters walking past. But one fighter caught his attention, a young man in his 20s. He looked strong but nervous. He kept wiping his face, looking toward the backstage hallway again and again. Jason understood. This fighter wasn't just nervous about the match. Something was wrong. Then Jason saw the promoter. The man wore an expensive suit, his hair slicked back, his watch shining under the lights. He smiled, looking important, but Jason could see the truth. People moved out of his way without him asking. Whispers followed him. Jason had heard the rumors. This man controlled fights. He made secret deals, used threats, and got what he wanted. But no one dared to talk about it. Jason watched as the promoter walked up to the young fighter. He leaned in close, whispering. The fighter's face turned pale. His shoulders dropped lower with every word. Jason didn't need to hear what was said. He already knew. The fighter was in trouble. And Jason was getting ready for what was coming next. Backstage, the young fighter stood frozen. The noise of the crowd outside felt far away. It was like he was trapped in a bad dream. The promoter leaned in, his voice low and mean. "You know how this works," he said. "Lose this fight. Fall down fast. No surprises." The fighter clenched his fists. His voice was small, scared. "Where is my family?" The promoter grinned and pulled out his phone. He showed the fighter a video. His wife and little child sat on an old couch in a dark room. Two men with big guns walked around them. The fighter felt his body go cold. "They're fine for now," the promoter said, putting his phone away. "But if you do anything stupid, if you fight back, things will get bad. Very bad. Lose the fight or you'll never see them again." The fighter felt trapped. His whole life he had trained for this moment. He had dreamed of this fight. But now he had no choice. If he fought and won, his family could be hurt. If he lost, his career would be over. Either way, he was stuck. He took a deep breath and nodded. His shoulders sagged. The promoter smiled, knowing he had won. He turned to walk away. But then he saw someone standing nearby. Jason Statham. Jason had been watching the whole time. He stood there, arms crossed, his sharp eyes taking in every detail. The moment the promoter showed the video, Jason knew exactly what was going on. He had seen this kind of thing before, bad men using fear to get what they wanted. Jason stayed quiet, but he was already planning his next move. This fight wasn't over yet. Jason stepped forward, his movements slow but strong. The promoter turned, realizing someone was there. His smug smile faded as he looked into Jason's eyes. There was something dangerous about the way Jason stood, calm, controlled, but ready to strike. "Who are you?" the promoter asked, trying to sound tough. "I'm the one who's going to fix this," Jason said simply. His voice was steady, filled with confidence. The promoter laughed. You're an actor. This isn't a movie." Jason smirked. "You're right. This is real life. And in real life, bad guys don't always win." The promoter's face darkened. "You don't understand who you're messing with." Jason took another step closer. "Oh, I understand perfectly. You're a coward who threatens people to get what you want. But not tonight. Tonight you lose." The promoter's bodyguards moved in, but Jason was faster. In the blink of an eye, he grabbed the first man's arm and twisted it, making him drop his weapon. He knocked the second man down with a single punch. The promoter stepped back, his face filled with fear. The young fighter watched, shocked. He had never seen anyone move like that. Jason turned to him. "Go," he said. "Fight your match. Win it. Don't be afraid." The fighter hesitated, then nodded. He ran toward the stage, ready to fight with everything he had. Jason turned back to the promoter, who was now shaking. "Please, don't hurt me," the promoter begged. Jason grabbed the phone from the promoter's pocket and called the number on the screen. "Let them go," he ordered. There was silence, then a voice on the other end said, "Yes, sir." The fighter's wife and child were safe. Jason looked at the promoter. "Your days of scaring people are over." The promoter gulped, knowing he had lost. Jason walked away as the crowd roared for the fight. The young fighter was in the ring now, ready to win. The bad guys had been stopped. And Jason? He simply disappeared into the night like a hero in real life. Because sometimes the good guys do win. Jason didn't move right away. He stood still, watching the two men in front of him. One man was like a hungry wolf, ready to attack. The other man, a young fighter, looked scared, like a rabbit caught in a trap. Jason clenched his jaw as he saw the young fighter lose hope. The man in charge, the promoter, walked past Jason. That's when Jason finally spoke. His voice was calm but strong. "Is this how you run your fights?" Jason asked. The promoter stopped and looked at Jason with a small frown. He waved his hand like Jason was nothing important. "Stay out of this, Statham," he said. "This is none of your business." Jason didn't step back. He didn't even blink. "I'm making it my business," Jason said. The promoter turned fully toward Jason. He smiled, but it wasn't a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that bullies have when they think they've already won. "Oh, please," the promoter laughed loudly. "The movie star wants to fight for real now?" Some people standing nearby started chuckling. "You think just because you throw punches in movies that makes you a real fighter?" the promoter asked, leaning in close. "This isn't a movie set, Statham. This is real. Real fights. Real pain." One of the promoter's men laughed. "Maybe he wants an autograph after the fight," the man joked. The young fighter looked at Jason with wide eyes. He let out a small, nervous laugh, like he didn't believe Jason could help him. He was too scared to hope. But Jason didn't laugh. He stood tall, calm, and focused. "I'm serious," Jason said quietly. He looked the promoter right in the eyes. "Let him go. I'll take his place." The promoter blinked. For a moment he looked surprised. But then just as fast, his smug smile returned. He laughed even louder. "You'll take his place?" the promoter repeated. "Do you even know who he's supposed to fight?" Jason didn't answer. He didn't need to. The promoter shook his head. He looked amused, like he thought Jason was making a big mistake. "Fine," the promoter said. "You want to fight? Then fight." He took a step closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "But when you lose, no one's going to be happy." He waved for one of his assistants. Then he smirked again. "And when you're done," he added, "you won't be walking away at all." Jason's face didn't change. He stayed completely calm. "One more thing," Jason said. "If I win, you let his family go. No tricks." The promoter rolled his eyes. "You're dreaming, Statham." Jason didn't back down. "Do it in front of cameras," he said. "Let the whole world see you keep your word." The promoter paused, thinking. Then he let out a slow, sneaky smile. "Deal," he said. He turned to his crew. "Let's give the fans a show they'll never forget," he shouted. Jason didn't shake the promoter's hand. He didn't need to. He had already said everything he needed to say. News spread fast. Everyone in the backstage area heard about the fight. Cameras rolled. People ran around getting ready. Word reached the UFC champion within minutes. The champion was a huge man. He had never lost a fight. He was strong, confident, and full of himself. He stood at the far end of the locker room, surrounded by his trainers. When he heard Jason's name, he let out a loud, deep laugh. He cracked his knuckles and smirked. Then he walked over to a group of people. Jason Statham, he scoffed. Is Hollywood hiring actors to fight now? A few people chuckled nervously. The champion flexed his muscles and spoke louder. This movie star thinks he can fight me? He laughed. Please. This isn't a movie. No second takes. He'll last 2 minutes before I knock him out. People murmured, nodding. The champion rolled his shoulders, looking confident. Let's see if all those fake movie punches taught him anything, he sneered. Then he walked toward the prep area, ready to fight. Meanwhile, Jason stood alone in a quiet corner. He didn't react to the champion's words. He didn't get angry. He didn't smile. He just stayed calm. To everyone else, it looked like Jason didn't care. But inside, Jason was more focused than ever. Outside, the fans cheered loudly. They were excited. They thought it was all just for fun. They didn't know that real lives were on the line. The commentators laughed, making jokes about Jason's movies. They didn't realize how serious this was. Jason quietly slipped away for a moment. He pulled out his phone and called someone. His voice was low and serious. Listen carefully, Jason said. On the other end was a police officer Jason trusted. The promoter has a family locked up. A fighter's wife and kid. I have the location. His men are watching them now, Jason explained. I need you to move fast. Get them out before the fight ends. The officer's voice became serious. Got it? I'm sending officers now. Make sure there's proof, Jason added. The promoter has been cheating for years. This ends tonight. Jason hung up. He put his phone back in his jacket. He took a deep breath, straightened his collar, and walked back to the prep area. He had one more job to do. The bell rang. The UFC champion charged forward, fast and strong like a bull. He was grinning, confident, ready to destroy Jason. He moved quickly, throwing a hard punch at Jason's ribs. Jason blocked most of it, but the impact still hurt. The champion smirked. Come on, movie man, he taunted. Hit back. Jason kept his guard up, stepping carefully. The champion threw more punches, stronger, faster. His knees shot up, trying to hit Jason's stomach. Jason dodged and blocked, but the champion was huge. Every punch and kick had power. To the crowd, it looked one-sided. They roared, cheering for the champion. They thought Jason was losing. The champion's trainers yelled, telling him to finish Jason quickly. Jason backed up, his breathing steady. His eyes never left the champion. The champion laughed and threw another heavy punch at Jason's face. Jason dodged, but not fast enough. The punch grazed his cheek, splitting his lip. He tasted blood. The champion grinned. Looks like you're better at acting than fighting, huh? He mocked, raising his arms to the crowd. The fans cheered, thinking the fight was almost over. But Jason wiped the blood from his lip and stood up straight. His breathing was still calm. His face was still unreadable. He saw the champion's weakness now. He was too confident. Too wild. Jason moved lightly on his feet. The champion came in fast, swinging again. Jason dodged and landed a sharp punch to the champion's ribs. The champion flinched. Not from pain, but from surprise. He swung again. Jason ducked and hit his kidney, quick, precise. The crowd didn't notice yet. They were still cheering for the champion. But Jason saw it. The champion was getting tired. Jason kept dodging, making him miss, making him waste energy. Step by step, the champion slowed. The fight had just begun, but Jason was already in control. Jason was still there. He was still standing. He was still fighting. The camera moved across the crowd, showing the faces of fans. Some leaned forward in their seats. They were realizing something surprising. Jason wasn't just getting hit, he was thinking. He was planning. He was saving his energy. People whispered to each other. They noticed something had changed. The champion, the big strong fighter, was starting to slow down. His shoulders were stiff. His punches weren't as strong. Even the commentators, the people talking about the fight on TV, noticed. Jason isn't giving up, one of them said. The crowd got louder. Some people who had been cheering for the champion started to cheer for Jason instead. Then Jason ducked under a big punch. He moved fast, throwing a quick set of punches. The champion took a step back. This fight had started as a joke. A lot of people thought Jason wouldn't last long. Some thought he was just there to make the champion look good. But now it felt real. Even the man in charge of the event, sitting in the front row and smiling before, was now leaning forward. He wasn't smiling anymore. Inside the cage, the champion was getting frustrated. His punches were wild, not as careful as before. He was trying too hard to hit Jason. Jason saw his chance. One big, messy punch left the champion open. Jason stepped in and hit him hard in the stomach. The champion made a sound like the air had been knocked out of him. The champion gritted his teeth and swung again. Jason ducked and spun around, hitting him in the jaw with a sharp elbow. The crowd roared. The champion stumbled back, looking dizzy. Jason didn't stop. He moved forward, fast and controlled. He hit him again. 2 quick punches to the body. Then 1 big punch to the face. The champion tried one last time. He ran at Jason, swinging his fists wildly. But Jason was too fast. He ducked under, grabbed the champion's shoulder, and drove his knee hard into the champion's stomach. The crowd jumped to their feet. Jason didn't hesitate. He threw an uppercut, a punch that hit the champion's chin from below. The champion's head snapped back. His legs wobbled. Jason took one last step forward. He threw one final punch, a strong right hook. Bam! The champion fell to the ground. He didn't get up. For a moment, the whole arena was silent. Then, boom, the crowd exploded with cheers. Jason stood above the knocked-out champion. He wasn't out of breath. He didn't jump around celebrating. He didn't raise his arms. He just stood there. Come. The camera zoomed in on Jason's face. He wasn't smiling. He wasn't laughing. His eyes were cold and serious. Then he looked at the man in charge of the event. The man's eyes were wide. He couldn't believe what had just happened. Jason had won. But miles away, something else was happening. A group of police officers, dressed in dark uniforms, stormed into a big old warehouse outside the city. Inside, a group of bad guys jumped up, shocked. "Freeze!" the officers shouted, weapons ready. The bad guys tried to grab their guns, but the police moved too fast. Within seconds, they were on the ground, hands behind their backs, their faces pressed against the cold floor. At the back of the warehouse, in a small room, a woman and a little child sat scared. Then bang, the door flew open. Police officers rushed in. The woman gasped. The child's eyes went wide. "It's okay," one officer said. "You're safe now." The woman started crying, but this time they were happy tears. The officers helped them up and led them outside. Back at the arena, nobody knew yet. But Jason knew. Before the fight started, Jason had made a quiet phone call. That call had sent the police to the warehouse. That call had saved the fighter's family. While Jason stood in the ring victorious, the fighter's wife and child were already free. Now back in the arena, the cameras turned to the man in charge of the event. His smug smile was gone. His hands gripped the edge of his seat. He looked nervous. Then the security team walked toward him. Then, behind them, police officers. The crowd started whispering. People pointed. "What's happening?" Before the man could react, the officers grabbed his arms and pulled him up from his seat. Click. Handcuffs snapped around his wrists. Cameras flashed. Reporters gasped. The whole thing was caught on live TV. The man's secret was out. His bad deals, his lies, his crimes, everyone saw it now. There was no way to hide. Backstage, away from all the cameras, the fighter Jason had saved stood waiting. His hands were shaking, not from the fight but from what had just happened. He was searching for someone. Then Jason appeared. The fighter took a step forward. His voice shook as he said, "Thank you." Jason nodded. That was all. No big speeches. No long conversations. Then the fighter's wife and child ran in. The little boy threw his arms around his dad. The wife held back tears. Jason took a step back. This was their moment. For Jason, this fight had never been about fame or attention. While reporters ran around trying to get interviews while the crowd kept cheering, Jason did something different. He picked up his jacket from a bench. No interviews. No celebrations. As the crowd screamed his name, as people shouted about his amazing victory, Jason simply walked away. He walked down the hallway. Near the exit, he stopped for just a second. He looked back. The fighter was hugging his wife. His child was safe in his arms. Jason nodded to himself. That was enough. Then, without a word, he stepped outside into the night. Behind him, the arena was filled with noise. But Jason didn't need the spotlight. Because real heroes don't fight for cheers. They fight to protect others. In the end, the only thing people would remember was the knockout, the man getting arrested, the shocking fight. But the real story was something much bigger. Jason's fight wasn't about winning inside the ring. It wasn't about proving he was the best. It was about doing what was right. Real strength isn't about having big muscles or winning trophies. Real strength is standing up for others. Real strength is fighting when someone needs you. And real strength doesn't need to be loud. It's quiet. It's steady. And it protects. If you enjoyed this story, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button for more exciting stories filled with adventure, mystery, and unforgettable moments. Your support means the world. It keeps these stories coming and the creativity flowing. Thanks for watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next video.